Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the My Love of Golf podcast. Thank you for joining us wherever you are around Australia or around the world. Your continued support means the world as we continue to bring you interviews and golf information from around the world with people who love golf about their love of golf. Joining us this week all the way from the town of Canmore, Alberta, Canada, which is in the beautiful Canadian Rockies, is Australian golf broadcaster of the last 20 years, the one and only Luke Elvy. As you'll hear, Luke started his golf broadcast career in Australia before making the leap to the big stage in the US, where he has called golf on the grandest of the game stages. Most recently, we've had the pleasure of hearing Luke call both the recent majors, the PGA from Oak Hill and the US Open from the Los Angeles Country Club, as well as the Ripper GC channel for LIV Golf Adelaide. Luke is one of the most passionate professional golf people I've had the pleasure of getting to know personally since we met in 2019. So I hope you enjoyed this catch-up with Luke, which we recorded on Friday prior to the kickoff of LIV Andalusia. And thank you again for taking the time to tune in. It's always a massive help if you subscribe to the My Love of Golf podcast wherever you get your podcast. So why not share this episode with a friend? But right now, sit back, relax, and enjoy my catch-up with Australia's very own international golf broadcaster, Luke Elvy. Luke Elvy, welcome. Well, I could say welcome to the My Love of Golf podcast. So I'm going to say welcome back to the My Love of Golf podcast. And you can help me explain why I'm saying welcome back. Our listeners on the podcast would have never heard you on this podcast before. They've heard you everywhere else, of course, all around the golf broadcasting and media world for the last 20, 30 years. But why am I saying welcome back to the My Love of Golf podcast, Luke?
Yeah, hello, Ross. Lovely to chat to you again, mate. And it was great to see you in person in Adelaide around the LIV event. It was a spectacular week for Australian golf, wasn't it? Yeah, we did a podcast about early COVID times. I think it would have been during the week of when the Masters was, and we ended up having a glorious fall Masters. That was one of the most joyful weeks I've had in broadcasting. But because of my role broadcasting the Masters, CBS wouldn't allow that to go in publicly, but not that there was anything critical said or whatever. It's just that that's the relationship they've got, that they want to protect, that, anything that they haven't pre-authorised shouldn't go public. It
was a great idea at the time, and it was obviously a difficult time because it was obviously right on the start of that whole COVID period, and the Masters was about to be delayed and that sort of thing. So we had this great chat, and it was fantastic. We had Rocket on board, and it was great. But it still remains in the file there as a great unpublished episode. And maybe one day in the fullness of time we might use snippets of that or something. Who knows? But mate, it's been a journey for golf media and golfers since then. Let's talk about the Masters. We'll just keep talking about the Masters for a second. That Masters that came to bear back, I think it was November. It got transferred to November, right?
November 2020.
It was a different Masters, and you were there. Talk us through what your experience was, not only just at that Masters, but some of your great Masters moments that we all maybe remember and can never have enough time recounting.
Well, firstly, I wasn't there. I actually broadcast that Masters from my basement here in the Canadian Rockies.
There you go.
I moved to Canada full-time in 2015. I'd been broadcasting back and forth. Some of your audience might remember me from hosting golf in Australia. Prior to that, I was hosting Fox Sports News for a decade. Look, it was a big move, to relocate my wife's hometown here in the Canadian Rockies, a beautiful little spot called Canmore, right outside the Banff National Park gates. Just stunning and easy to commute to all the American tournaments, which I was doing a ton of, let's say from 2013 through to the pandemic hitting. That Masters I adored because of the golden hour that we got to see, that you never get to see Augusta National in that light. It was around about sort of 5 to 6:30 p.m. There would be this golden light that would sit atop the beautiful Georgian pines and the dogwoods. You didn't see the azaleas in bloom because they don't in November. They bloom in the spring. It was just different ways to see it. People talked about or lamented the fact that it was a softer Masters because DJ was able to shoot 20 under. Cam Smith, who was runner-up, alongside Sung Jae Im, shot 4 rounds in the 60s, the very first man to do it. People sort of said it didn't feel like the Masters because you didn't have the awesome crowds and the roars. But to me, it was just as special as all the others. And again, a real treat to see Augusta National in that light. to answer your question on the greatest, fondest memories for me, I'll try and go through it chronologically. My first Masters was 2010. That was Tiger's comeback after the infidelities. I called that tournament for Fox Sports, and it was amazing to be around this venue that I dreamt of, since I was a wee lad at 6 or 7 years of age when I first got exposed to it. My first true memory of the Masters was Jack winning in 86. I was 10 years old at that stage. Then obviously the bitter disappointment the following year with Norman. But my first real one broadcasting it for Australian television was the following year in 2011. And of course, at that stage, no Australian had ever won the Masters. And we had Jason Day and Adam Scott push right to the very end, and we thought one of them was going to win. In fact, even Jeff Ogilvy, when he came off the course and got interviewed, he said, look, this is because he tied fourth with Tiger. He said, look, this is getting really exciting. I'm going to go out and watch the finish because I think one of our guys is going to finally get the green jacket. Obviously, we know the story that Charles Schwartzel flashed home with 4 straight birdies, an unprecedented 4 straight birdies over the final 4 holes to steal it off the back of Adam Scott and Jason Day, who we thought may have gone into a playoff. Then obviously Scotty wins in 2013, and then the world changes for Australia at Augusta ever since. That's with the exception of Tiger Woods winning in 2019, which I had the privilege hosting holes 15 and 16 of calling his go-ahead birdie on 15 and then the near hole-in-one on 16, which they ended up using in that Tiger documentary series on HBO, my call over Vern Lundquist's. But it was a very special moment to be able to go up after he's putted out on 16, greenside, and feel that energy that was created by his victory, and that the hairs standing up on your arms, the back of your neck, and everything that this guy had been through. A backstory for me is Tiger. I've been following him since I was 10 years old. I'm 18 days younger than him. I've known his story, very intimately right throughout. I didn't go to university, but he's basically been my thesis in life is studying Tiger, and to finally see him win and call that return to glory moment, that'll be probably the most special thing I get to do in my career. But to then be greenside and then be a couple of yards away when he's picking up Charlie and hugging him and his family, and that moment of just magnetism, that'll live with me for the rest of my life.
Who were the influences in and around that whole commentary team? I'm going to guess that Ian Baker-Finch has been one of the biggest influences, through your career. I think you're in business with Finchy now. Yeah. Talk to us about, just that, I guess, influence of one of Australia's greatest ever golfers on you and your career and where you are now.
Well, Finchy's more a mentor and friend. My real influence was Jim Nantz. I had two sort of influences in the media. Mike Gibson, who used to host Wide World of Sports on Channel 9 back in the 80s, 90s, and then Jim Nantz for broadcasting as a front man, host, play-by-play, which I am. They were my two main people in television that I sort of idolised and looked up to and tried to model myself off. Ian, it was just one of those beautiful things where when I was asked to front golf in Australia with Network 10, they said, well, we'd like to build a team around you. Who do you think should be on it? And I said, well, listen, Ian Baker-Finch is the no-brainer, given that he's on American television every week broadcasting the PGA Tour, and Wayne Grady, who at that time was a regular voice on the European Tour, both of them major champions. And within about half an hour of our first broadcast, I dropped this nugget on air, deep history of the Australian Open, and Finchy sort of turned and looked at me and went, oh, wow, where did that come from type thing. He didn't say this on air, but he just said, wow, that's really impressive. And I said, well, I may have done a little bit of research. I didn't want to stuff up my first big gig broadcasting Australian golf, particularly the Australian Open. And he said, look, it's Thursday at about 2 p.m. Not many people are watching. Save that goal to Sunday when you got a much bigger audience. And I learned very quickly then from Finchy that, he was going to be a great ally for me. And look, the biggest moment for me was probably a year later. We were having a dinner after either the PGA or Australian Open, and he just said, what are you doing here? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm living my dream. I'm broadcasting Australian golf. I get to commentate on the Australians on the PGA Tour during majors season over in the States. Like, this is as good as it gets for me. He said, look, you're awfully good at what you do. You should be over in the States doing it there because that's the big audience. And he basically, introduced me to all and sundry in the US media, and really helped me make that transition across to North American television, and particularly the big companies like CBS, which has been something that I'll be forever indebted to Finchy for. But recently, when I started this new business of indoor golf simulator sports bar, we'll get to that in a second. And he was my very first investor. He said, "Luke, phenomenal idea. I want in." I named the top floor after him. It's called Finchy's Bar and Grill here at Can Golf, and I've been able to sort of honour him back for everything he's meant to me in my life. But he's one of the all-time great Australians, not just in golf but just in sports, because he has the most beautiful nature about him. He's a kind, generous, wonderful man, but he was also a champion and continues to be a lovely voice for the game globally.
Let's keep talking about some of those great Australians. And you mentioned Masters moments in 2013. It's just gone 10 years of Adam Scott's win. When you think about the longevity that Scotty continues to have now, he's not a senior player on tour, but he's certainly been doing it. Well, I guess he is a senior player on tour. I don't know.
Absolutely. He's the chairman of the board now. He's 42, and life's different for Scotty.
He's still playing fantastic golf, and that's why I wanted just to quickly touch on Scotty and his longevity and just his statesman role in the game. Mm-hmm. I had the pleasure and privilege of being a fly on the wall for the Australian Golf Digest magazine interview that Evan Priest and the guys from Australian Golf Digest did for Scotty to celebrate the 10-year anniversary, and I was videoing it for them. I was there on the spot with a camera, yep, and got to hear him talk through that whole interview, and all of the moments that he recounted that they were able to turn into that interview. And it was just obviously one of those, for me, not being in the media, a great experience. He continues to be a phenomenal golfer and perform at the highest level. What is it about Scotty that you love?
I think the question should be, what is about Scotty that I don't love, which is nothing. We joke about there hasn't been a perfect human since Jesus Christ, but I think Adam Scott is awfully bloody close. He's just an incredible fella. He is a man's man. He is a great friend to his friends, his close friends from Australia. He's never, forgotten them. In fact, a lot of them still travel to watch him play in majors, and he funds all of their experiences and whatever. He is just a gentleman. The way he plays the game is so, people adore the swing and just the nature of who he is and how he goes about it. His first instinct when he won that green jacket in 2013 was, come on, Aussie. When he made that massive putt on 18 that he thought he'd won it in regulation. Come on, Aussie. Like, he thinks of his nation before himself in the biggest moment of his life, because he knew how big that would be for his country. And then for him to sit down and go, I can't believe that my legacy will end up being the guy that first won Australia its green jacket. And the humility that comes through from him. And to be honest, I think he's just the most perfect person to be involved as the chairman of the PGA Tour board right now, the player advisory board, because of the way he is. He doesn't play that divisive political nature that you see in the States, where if you're not on my side, you're against me. It's like, no, it's just golf, guys. They're all just playing golf. People have travelled all around the world to play golf for money for a long, long time. If you don't like where money comes from, that's your, issue, but it's not the players' issue. Their job is just to go out there and do what they do to the best of their ability. And right now, he's the perfect guy to be chairing the PGA Tour's board, because he will ensure that the players get the absolute best out of this, and that they don't get that situation where they're being controlled like they were before. Mm-hmm. And that was always Phil Mickelson's issue, and that's why he went out and sort of spoke up against the tour. And now you'll start to see a lot more players do that, which is fascinating. But, it's about time that the players started to get what they truly deserve, because they are the talent, not the PGA Tour, not LIV, not the European Tour, not the Australian PGA of Australia or Golf Australia. It's the people that play the game at the highest level. They are the product, and they'll always be the product.
Now, we've obviously started to talk about it, so let's continue, I guess, down this line for a moment. There's a lot going on right now. There has been so much going on with this LIV PGA Tour and the evolution of that. When we spoke in Adelaide, at LIV Golf Adelaide, had a great catch-up. It was a different landscape to what we're talking about now, and it's evolved very quickly. You know, what we didn't know, it was evolving in the background maybe at that time, and it continues to evolve overnight. You know, we've got the LIV Golf Andalusia, which is now known as LIV Golf Andalusia. They've announced their 5-year partnership with the region of Andalusia in Spain. That, to me, signifies a fairly strong commitment of LIV Golf. They've announced a strategic sustainability plan in the last 24, 48 hours, 5-year plan with a whole web of initiatives behind that, a fairly significant and comprehensive plan. It continues to, LIV Golf continues to push along as if it's not going anywhere. And then we've got, obviously, on the PGA Tour side, the messaging coming out of there that PGA Tour is in control, or will be in control of the Newco golf system, all of that sort of stuff. What's your take at the moment on where we land? You can't answer it in a sentence, but we may as well talk about it because...
as you know, and anyone who follows me on Twitter, I've been very vocal from the start. This has not been about politics for me. It's just simply been about people playing golf for money, which is what professional golf is. People keep saying, oh, you've got no heart, you've got no compassion, you're a Saudi shill, you support blood money, all these divisive things where I'm like, no. You know what I support? You know what I love? Is people that are so good at this game, they've got their name on their bag, and thousands of people go to tournaments to watch them play, and millions of people watch them worldwide to do what they do. And that is why I'm a golf broadcaster solely now. I was an all-sports guy up until 2010, but I went golf-specific from that moment because golf is my greatest of passions in sports, even though I love all sports. And I want to tell the great stories of the game. Now, when Phil Mickelson left to go to LIV, when Brooks Koepka left to go to LIV, or Dustin Johnson, or Cameron Smith, or Sergio Garcia, or Lee Westwood, or Ian Poulter, or all these people that had achieved sensational things in their career, did they stop being the same person they were? Of course not. We've seen it with the way that they've all performed magnificently through the majors. They've been stars. In fact, LIV golfers have probably performed better than most of the PGA Tour pros in majors. So I kept saying, don't ridicule or rubbish these people for just making a straight business decision. That's all they've done. The PGA Tour's made a business decision recently to partner with the same organisation that they denounced for 12 months. And I absolutely struggled with the hypocrisy of it all back at the start, and that was what I was very quick to call out, is that a lot of big businesses in the United States, their government, for goodness sakes, one of the top trading partners of Saudi Arabia is the United States of America. So if it's all right for government and it's all right for elite businesses, Fortune 500 companies, to make money off the Saudis, why was it not for male professional golfers? It was before when they hosted the Saudi International. It was on the DP World Tour. It wasn't about where the money was coming from. It was about the potential of the establishment, which is the PGA Tour and DP World Tour, losing power and control. And all I was prepared to do was point that out. Mm-hmm. And now we've seen with Monahan coming back and doing a deal with the Saudis to try and get some of that money that they know is never going to go away, because money of that magnitude will never lose. Look what's happened. And everything that I said for 12 months has come to fruition. It happened faster than I thought it would. I knew there'd be a coming together down the track because we've seen it with World Series cricket in Australia and the Rugby League Super League war that I lived through in the mid-90s. There had to be a coming back together because you cannot have a divisive talent. You can't have some of the best players in the world over there and some of the best players in the world over here. And all I, like Greg Norman being my childhood hero as a player, all I ever agreed with Greg the whole time was there should be one unified global golf tour. So nations like Australia get fed because we develop all this talent and it goes over to America and we don't get to benefit from any of it. We jump up and down and go, how good's this when a President's Cup comes to our shores once every 9 years or 8 years or 10 years or whatever it is, because that's all we get. But we should be able to see the best like the Australian Open tennis does. The way that the tennis tour works globally, in my opinion, is the right model. People don't seem to agree with that, but that's just my opinion. And Japan, how much would they benefit if Hideki Matsuyama played in a big event on home soil with all the best players every year? Be enormous. Yeah. Same with what's going on in Asia, same with what's going back in Europe. I mean, Europe is a shadow of its former self. You're talking about the great Ian Baker-Finch and Wayne Grady and people like Greg Norman who played in the 80s and 90s over there. That was a mega tour back then. That was just a galaxy of stars then. And now it's like you watch the European Tour events, the LIV events are way stronger, way stronger. And what we saw in Adelaide, that was the cornerstone moment. That was what forced Jimmy Dunn and Ed Herrley, who were the two PGA Tour board members who are of significant standing in the game, members of Augusta National, Seminole, Cypress Point, big top end of town businessmen as well. They turned to Joe and said, you've got to do something about this because this is not going to survive going up against this, because Adelaide showed that other parts of the world care for this product. And it changed the game. And what did it take them 3 months after that to do the deal?
It's been phenomenal since then, just to be a fly on the wall and not be part of it, just to watch it and be able to talk about it occasionally. It still was divisive. It's divisive in my own podcast team, as you know. The thought that people challenge me on, I'm not challenged by it, but the thought that one sovereign nation can potentially control the entirety of the sport. Does that resonate with you? Do you think that that's
well? No, because it's the control's the wrong word. They're invested. They're invested heavily into Formula One. They're invested heavily into football now because they've gone and bought Cristiano Ronaldo and a couple of other big superstars, but they own Newcastle United. They're invested heavily into Worldwide Wrestling Federation because they've now bought exclusive rights for $1 billion. They're invested heavily into golf. They want to be invested into tennis. They're investing into things because they have spent the last 40 years making billions of dollars selling their resource to the world that the world adores, which is oil. And they've made billions of dollars. They've formed this fund and gone, well, we need to then repurpose our profits by diversifying our assets and investments. So they've gone and invested into all these companies and all these businesses, and they realise that sport is a massive thing. Now, what we learned and what a lot of people didn't see from the very start about this, they thought the Saudis want to buy golf. No, they don't want to buy golf. Their big plan is tourism. Their big plan is to make Saudi Arabia the new Dubai for the Middle East. That's their plan. They want tourism to be the thing that helps them get through when renewable energy starts to take over from oil and gas. Now, that might not happen in 30, 40, 50 years, but it doesn't matter. They'll be set up in that respect to do it. So they've invested into all these other things. So people are more fascinated about Saudi Arabia. Incredibly smart business decisions, by the way. These people aren't just throwing stuff out there with billions of dollars and going, oh, we'll just buy stuff and see what comes of it. It's massively measured. It's a huge plan started by the King of Saudi Arabia and Mohammed bin Salman, and now being put into action by Yasser Al Rumayyan. So they've got this plan. It started in 2015, 2016, and they've been pushing towards this 2030 vision of making Saudi Arabia the tourism mecca of the Middle East. But people in golf feel like, no, they're buying and taking over and want to control golf. It's like, no, golf's a blip on their radar of what they've got in mind. But all this money was coming into it, and look who got a piece of it.
So moving forward, this agreement, again, partnership, merger, acquisition, what's the right way to term it? How would you
they've called it a merger.
A merger?
It's a merger. Obviously, there's a lot of, working out exactly how it's going to look like. But it was very interesting that the PGA Tour came out straight away and said, oh, we're still in control. We've got control. We're going to make all the decisions. We're going to shut down LIV. We're going to punish those that went away, and all this talk of we're the big seat at the table. But everyone knows the man with the money holds the power. And Yasser, even today, came out and said, it's my effing baby, when he was asked about LIV. And you asked, well, they're making all these big plans, a 5-year plan. They've got this plan and that plan. It's not going anywhere. What you'll probably see with this merger is the haves and the have-nots on the main tour and in world golf if you're the top sort of 75 to 80 players in the world, you are going to make astronomical money. You've already seen it with LIV, what's happening. The top players will be able to cross over from PGA Tour, DP World Tour, LIV, whatever, including the majors, where it suits. The rest will be fighting off for the right to get into designated events, to play in the top majors, to get starts and LIV and be involved in teams and whatever. That's what you'll probably see is the top absolute elite will get serious bank and the rest will keep fighting up that sort of layers of professional golf trying to get there.
You mentioned rugby league. As long as we've grown up with rugby league, we've always had first grade and reserve grade. And I certainly very much see, an opportunity for this, let's call it a reserve grade, those other tier of players to be able to perform at the highest level, their highest level, and have gain those opportunities for promotion. And I can, in my vision, I can see a golf world where a LIV format and a PGA Tour format can coexist and be complementary in terms of a golf product that me, the golfer, wants to watch and sit down at, or get up at early o'clock and stay up late at stupid o'clock and really actively engage in. I tried to stay up.
Or heaven forbid, when it's an event that's being played in Asia, in our backyard, the time zone for Australia.
100%.
Obviously, LIV Adelaide has proven itself to be an enormous success. Let's say the Australian Open is an official PGA Tour event one day that's on the schedule. How fantastic is that? That's what Australians have always wanted. We've always yearned to see the best of the best on our shores. And what golf needed, because it never had it, with the exception of the majors and a handful of PGA Tour events up until recently, is the best of the best don't play against each other very often. There's about 5 or 6 tournaments outside of the majors where you might see them. Other than that, some are playing at that event. Some of them are playing in this event. Some of them are over at that part of the world. They just went where the money was. That's what they did. They took appearance fees to go and play there, and they had to play here, or they, one of them's like Sergio, go back and play in Spain, or John Rahm. Like these things make complete sense. Why can't the Spaniards see more of John Rahm on home soil? Why couldn't John Rahm live in Spain and play a global tour? Yep. Why can't Cam Smith live in Australia and play on a global tour? Why can't Hideki Matsuyama live in Japan and play on a global tour? Why do these people all have to go to America to ply their trade or earn their living? Why?
It's interesting watching how Valderrama have chosen LIV as their golf partner. Because,
and you know why?
Because they couldn't rely on having the strength of field through the DP World Tour, and it banked on John Rahm either saying, yeah, I'll come, or no, I won't come. And, you really, if they're sitting back watching in Adelaide, for example, they think, well, I want a piece of that too.
Correct. Adelaide changed the game for golf, not just for LIV. It changed the game for world golf because the rest of the world saw what's possible. And they all want a piece of the pie. And people say, oh, I'm anti-American because I want a global tour. And I'm like, no. Some of my dearest friends are American. Some of my greatest moments of my life have been enjoyed in America. I'm not anti-American. I am a global citizen. I want things to work globally. Is there something wrong with that?
There's absolutely nothing wrong with it in my books because same, I share a passport of 2 countries. I am married to a person from a beautiful wife from another part of the world where my origins are. I spend time traveling to those parts and doing golf in all of those parts, and I'd love to do golf in more of those parts. So I'm very much...
I'm a Canadian.
Yeah.
I'm a Canadian citizen now. I'm married to a Canadian. I live in Canada. I work in the States, but I am Australian.
Yep.
I am, in my heart, Australian. So I'm a global citizen.
Yep.
I'm not one country. I'm not just American or just Australian or just... I'm a global citizen. Remember, this is a game, and you having that Scottish roots that you talk about, that's where the game was created.
Yep.
That's where the game grew, out of Europe. America, because of the balance of power in the world changing from United Kingdom reign to American reign, they got more money. So more players drifted across to play in America. The TV deals were enormous, so that's where the money came from. So that's where everyone went to play. Now that Saudi Arabia is going, well, I see a few billion and I'll raise you a couple of trillion. Well, look what's happening. Look what's starting to happen. All the money's starting to, come from the Middle East and from Asia with China and India. This balance of power that's happening in the world right now is shifting away from America. So are sports. They won't control everything like they used to. So that's what's changed here. It's not who owns what. It's just where the money is. People go where the money goes. We live in a capitalistic society. Whether you like it or not, that's exactly what it is.
So with Adelaide, what's your how did the Adelaide broadcasting gig come about for you, and you worked with Wade on that Ripper GC broadcast and other parts. How did that all eventuate?
I'd been back and forth talking to LIV about doing some work for them. That's the delicate balance, me being the voice of the PGA Tour video game, still wanting to broadcast majors and tour events, and again, not be the guy that's seen as one or the other. I just talk about golfers playing golf because that's what I do. And I was actually going to do some MC work for them at the event because I was coming to Australia for the first time since the pandemic struck. 3 years it had been for me to finally go back and see my family. And it was the 2 weeks because of spring break in Canada that I could come prior to that event. I said, well, if I'm going to be down there, I'm happy to be involved. And then I got the phone call. James Watson, who's an Australian, is the executive producer of LIV Golf Broadcasts. Fabulously talented fella, wonderfully creative, has produced a number of events in Australia for golf or tennis or cricket. Just one of those people in television who's so good they've ended up where they should be, and they're going to a global audience. And he just said, listen, we want to give this team feed a go. This is going to be a massive week in Adelaide. Would you be interested in hosting? And I said, the channel, the Ripper GC team feed. And I said, look, it'd be fantastic. It'd be lovely. Wade Ormsby, who was on that team last year, which was known as Punch GC before Cam changed the name, who better to be in the seat beside me and help us talk us through it. Plus, Adelaide boy, plus grew up playing golf at the Grange, plus knows absolutely everything about LIV Golf. He was the perfect person. And we had a spectacular 4 days. As you know, that'll be one of the great scenes for Australian golf. In my 25 years of being involved in the media in Australia, I've seen 5 things that stand above everything else. 3 President's Cups, the Australian Open in 2011, which I got to host, which had all the President's Cup stars, including Tiger there at the Lakes, and this LIV event. So it's one of the 5 biggest things that's happened in Australia since Norman was in his prime.
Did it surpass your expectations? When you said, yep, I'll go, and did you have a vision that that's what it would be like in terms of the crowd and the crowd support?
I knew Australians would go nuts for it, and when it was sold out, we knew, but no one could possibly have imagined it had gone like that. When I saw Greg Norman in the compound on the Sunday, I just said, mate, unbelievable. Congratulations. You must be thrilled. And he just said, thank you. You could see that it had really got him because whatever people's opinions of Greg Norman, he has and will always have Australia in his heart. And all he wants to do is keep bringing world-class golf back to Australia and helping Australian golf be great because he knows what it was like when he was in his prime. And he just said, you know what? I knew it'd be like this. I knew this would happen. And it vindicated everything he's done. Trying to make LIV be what it is. He's now, 25 years removed from trying to get that world tour up. And now look where we're heading. We're heading back down the path of a potential global tour.
People want to throw Greg under the bus and demonise, what he's done. But the thing about Greg, he's never strayed from that. That's been his vision, his goal and his intention for golf globally. He's obviously been incredibly successful in business, and he's pretty much everything that he's done has turned to gold, whether it's his golf course design and architecture building, his other brands, his wines, whatever else it is. He's stayed true to that course and found a way. But is it fair to say that he's been demonised in America? No
question, but globally.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because of this divisive world that Americans live in with their politics, you can't just think that Greg Norman's a nice fella. You've either love him or you've got to hate him in their eyes. And if you love him, we hate you. Instead of Greg cares deeply about the game that he has been one of the all-time greats at, and he cares deeply about Australia. And you talk about business, he's been the best businessman to have ever played professional golf. Yep, Jack's made more. Yep, Tiger's made more because they are bigger names. But Greg has literally done business better than anyone else in the history of the game. Arnold Palmer made a killing off his name and likeness. But Norman's the best businessman in golf. And people keep talking about, who should run this new co, who should be in charge, Jay's going to get rid of Greg. Greg should run. If you want it to be a success, have Greg run it. because Greg cares about the players. He comes from the player's perspective, not from the, hey, I'm in a nice shiny flash suit, I fly privately, make $13 million a year to be a commissioner and, control these talented people. But that's not the decision that's been.
But it's a fair point. And, usually with people, sports people that have been successful in business that have come from the sport and played the sport and, bled blood in the sport,
yep.
Usually is a formula for success that they can have that player interest. The players are the capital here that really are the show, and we want to see, and all of the stuff around gets in the way sometimes. It's got to get in the way, and it looks like we've got another period of where it's going to settle down, and hopefully it'll work out in the fullness of time for everyone's benefit, for your benefit, for my benefit in doing this and selling Golf Club and being part of that golf eco-structure that benefits from what we're talking about. I make a living out of golf, as do you.
Right.
So
I will jump in and say this, with what's happened off the back of the pandemic, the massive free kick that golf got through the pandemic. Now this disruption that's happened to the game, golf's never been spoken about as much as it has over the last 12 to 18 months.
Yep.
And that old adage of no publicity is bad publicity, golf, it's booming. It's so many people are interested, even people that don't care of the game. Like, what's going on with this LIV stuff, or what does this Saudi investment mean? And, I get questions all the time. To me, I understand why people have an issue with it. I do. But what it has done for the game has been as significant as Tiger Woods in his prime. Yep. That's what it's done for the game. That impact will be felt for decades.
You touched on something there that I don't spend enough time sort of not giving myself credit for, but reflecting on in terms of being the sense of the people. I see a lot of golf people, in a golf shop, in one of Australia's bigger golf retail environments. I see golfers every day. I talk to golfers every day about golf, for golf. And you know what? If that's the market of the people who are watching golf and what this whole structure is all about, the entertainment part of it and getting eyeballs on the game, the majority of the people that I speak to really either don't know, don't understand, they don't understand this level of conversation and the machinations behind it.
They don't care.
They don't care.
No, they don't care. They don't want to have to worry about what's going on to make it great. They just want to see the best of the best play the game. Yeah. Or they just want to see golf doing what it is. And that's really, from day one, that's what this has been all about.
I still watch the PGA Tour. I'm not against the PGA Tour. I love the PGA Tour. I've watched the last few events. The last few events have been great. The Travellers was great.
I barely miss a frame each week. Yeah. I'm still, indelibly connected to the game. I still broadcast. I've just done the PGA and US Open, including a couple of LIV events. I'm doing the PGA Tour video game again. We're going around again for another version coming up for 2025. My passion for golf has not wavered one iota through any of this. And when it all settles down and all the finger pointing and name calling and silliness that's gone on is over, what will shine through? The game.
Exactly.
The game that's stood the test of the time. And again, remember, we're still only talking about a 0.5% of the game. We're talking about the shop front window of the game, which is professional golf. But golf's been going on for 300 plus years. And 99.95% of the game is just recreational golf or top golf or simulator golf, which you and I are invested into, or, mini golf that the pop stroke, the Tiger's doing in this, new Tiger TGL thing and he and Rory are doing. Entertainment of golf is exploding, but it's still only a fraction of the game. Yet it all gets all the attention because it is the shop front window. These are the supermodels of the game. So everyone's attracted to it.
You mentioned a couple of things there that we should talk about, because I see that as a really strong part of this post-pandemic explosion of golf, this free kick that a lot of people talk about it in terms of, you're invested in golf, I'm invested in golf. Your business at Can Golf, it's Can Golf, isn't it? It's called,
Can Golf.
Can Golf.
It's called Finchy's Bar and Grill at Can Golf, Donna, Ian, and that's our food and beverage, because it's a restaurant as much as it is an indoor golf centre.
When did you decide to get involved in the golf entertainment business at the coalface, you could say?
Okay, so Incredible. I was doing the 2018 Ryder Cup for Turner Sports, which was doing the PGA of America coverage, which is featured groups coverage or featured match coverage or whatever. And I did 2016 at Hazeltine. I was doing 2018 Le Golf National in Paris. But NBC Golf was taking over the rights to that, and Turner was getting out of it. They specialise in basketball predominantly, plus they still do a little bit of golf. They do the match and a couple of other things, but they were getting out of it. So instead of sending us all over to Paris, France, they sent us down to their studios in Atlanta, where the NBA is done out of, to do this championship, or to do the Ryder Cup. And there was this glorious About Golf simulator in the place that had Le Golf National on it, and Billy Kratzett and I were a team, and we were doing stuff, and I'd say, okay, Billy, they're on the 10th. Let's go and take a look at the hole. Whole flyover. Now, this is where the tee shots are. Take us through this shot and why it's challenging. And when we got off set, I said to the person that was running the simulator, I said, these simulators are outstanding these days. Before, being involved in the golf industry for 20 years, they were basically just a bed sheet hanging from the ceiling with a projected image, and you'd hit a shot and you go, oh, that sort of feels, normal, but not really. And they've now evolved into this elite product where it is so close to outdoor golf that it has replaced outdoor golf for a lot of people because of time, cost, money, access, whatever, all these things that are barriers for people getting the game. And in 2019, I became the VP of media for About Golf. Off the back of that, I became an ambassador, then the VP of media. And in 2019, I went to the golf show down in Orlando, got to experience all the other simulators, and realized that these simulators are a potent thing. They're a great learning tool. They're a great instructional tool. They're a great club fitting tool. But the games, the fun, the engagement, how you can bring all these different people into the game, it's outstanding. And I thought, well, I live in one of the toughest places in the world to play golf in because there's snow on the ground for 6+ months. So our golf season up here is literally 5 months of the year. And I said, well, I'd like to expose people to golf year round because as an Australian, that's what I grew up in. Yep. Coming from Sydney, it was either, really nice weather or sometimes a little colder, but we played year round. But here they literally it's off. It ends abruptly in early October and it doesn't start again until early May. So that's their 5 months. And they'll play like 100 rounds during that time. I thought, I'll build one of these places in town. I'll put one of the, 5 simulators in, sports bar, a nice, fun indoor entertainment place so people could, more people could play golf year round or be exposed to the game perhaps that they wouldn't be if they didn't get the chance to, play outside or know how to play outside. Women feel incredibly uncomfortable playing golf because they get judged. They don't like the way people speak to them. Hurry up, pick up your ball, move on. What are you doing? But in a simulator, they get their space themselves. They go and have a bottle of wine and a nice charcuterie board to share and just go and have a great couple of hours, and it's outstanding.
Yeah.
Kids, families, you see all them all come in and play and you're like, this is so cool. So that is why I went down that path. And when I got back from Australia and started 2020, within a couple of events, I'd done Pebble Beach and Riviera, done back-to-back those two, flew home, and basically the world shut down about 3 weeks later. And I'm like, okay, well, I've been given this gift of time. Let's start putting this business into plan, turn the plan into reality. And that's really the fortunate time for me of the pandemic was it gave me the gift of time to put this business together.
Well, it's a great business to be in. I was the pilot store for the Big Swing Golf concept here in Australia, and we launched it with 4X golf simulators, 3X golf simulators actually. It didn't have a brand name, it didn't have a franchise behind it, but we toiled away. There was many a night where I sat there with the place lit up, open, with no one playing. But right. Week after week, month after month, year after year, it's slowly grown it's grown into a very viable, very profitable arm of our business. And everything that you've articulated, I've seen it come to fruition. The women playing golf, we have Women's International Golf Day. We have a golf day in the store. We have coaching. We encourage some of our golfing clients to bring their friends, and it's just been a great atmosphere. We have kids parties. Most of the simulators that you talk about golf simulators, I talk full swing golf simulators. They have entertainment software, games where it's not just golf. So like
darts, cornhole, beer pong, mini golf. soccer, you name it. There's all these different things you can do on them. It's just great fun.
So it's entertainment end to end. So it's a great business to be in, and I congratulate you for getting involved. And obviously, one day I would definitely want to come to Canmore and experience it. I want to stay up there. I've actually got 2 staff members on the books now that are from Calgary.
Oh, perfect. Well, we're an hour's drive from Calgary, so if you've got to go and visit them, come up and see us.
Well, I don't want to go and visit. Right? They're working. If I go and visit them, they have to work for me. So that's the deal. They need to work while I'm not there. But no, I can't wait to come and see it. Yeah, but the gamification of golf is a massive thing, and we've seen recently, the Top Golf story. Yep. We don't have Top Golf out here. I went to Albert Park. Have you ever been to Albert Park driving range?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I went to that the other day, and the Albert Park people have spent millions on building a new facility with rooftop bars and TrackMan range and the whole lot. And it was, I think, I went down to hit some balls, and it was like 11 o'clock on a Tuesday or something like that. I was off, and the place was heaving, absolutely heaving. But this gamification of golf is just continuing to go. Your experience in gamification of golf's been around for a while. You're the voice of the PGA Tour 2K23.
2K, yeah.
How does that go?
It's fantastic. I'm not a gamer. I have enjoyed playing video games occasionally in my life, but I spent more time outdoors than I do indoors. So I don't play games as much as other people, video games. But in 2018, another very pivotal time for me, I got a call from my agent when I was heading up a chairlift here in Banff skiing. Late January, and he said, "Mate, can you take this call?" And I said, "Well, you've got about a minute and a half, because once I get to the top, I'm skiing back down to the bottom." He said, "You're going to want to take this call." And I got handpicked out of 10 voices on the PGA Tour, and many of the names people will know, like, Rich Lerner and Steve Sands and some of the CBS guys, and they had a number of names that they thought about, but they chose mine. They loved the Australian accent. They loved that I was a bit younger. And it was the indie golf game, the golf club, that was made out of Lunenburg, Nova Scotia in Canada by HB Studios. And it was quite a hit amongst the cult world. But because EA Sports' version of the PGA Tour had died off Rory in 2015, they thought, well, why don't we try and bring a little bit of PGA Tour into it? So I became the voice of the PGA Tour aspect within that game. Well, that did very well, and they went into 2021, and they asked me, "Hey, listen, we really like that. We'd like to bring someone else into the game. Who do you recommend?" And I said, "Well, I get on famously with him. He's a phenomenal guy. He's a major champion. He's American. Knows a lot of the players still very well. Rich Beam, because he's a real character. Let's bring Rich in." And that game exploded because 2K Sports came in to be the partner of it, the publisher, and it launched during the pandemic. It came out in like September of 2020, and they sold millions of copies. They were anticipating and selling maybe 750,000. They sold 5-6 million copies of that game. And then they signed Tiger to be the face of the game for the next 10 years. And it's now, metamorphosed into this enormous thing that EA Sports say, well, let's get back into golf again, because look what 2K's been able to achieve with HB Studios. So, it's cool to be the voice of a video game. It'll be something that I'll be proud of at the end of the career that I did this. I get more hate mail or, hey, that's really cool that you're the voice of a video game, more than my broadcasting on television. And, I get to do majors and masters and PGA Tour events and live events and whatever, but they still think that that's the coolest, being on a video game, or they despise me because the comments that come out they don't like. And you're like, each of their own, right? But it's fascinating how many people love video games and how big esports has become. I use this analogy every time when people ask me about video games. In 2019, when Tiger scaled Everest again and won the Masters, 11 years removed from his last major championship victory, that epic moment we all witnessed, that's the biggest thing we've seen in golf. He made less than $2 million for the first prize in that. The same year, the guy who won the Fortnite World Cup was 17 years old, and he made $3 million.
Wow.
Now, $3 million in golf is not the biggest prize anymore, but that was in 2019. Biggest sports star of all time in global, of this generation in Tiger Woods. He made less winning the biggest prize in golf as the kid, a teenager who won Fortnite. And I'm thinking, okay, this is a big deal. Yeah. This is a very big deal. And you just see, who's invested heavily into esports? The Saudis.
Funnily enough.
Why wouldn't they be? It's going to explode. And I see a world here shortly where I'm broadcasting PGA Tour video games on tournaments on the video game live in arenas while these people are playing for as much money as being the top players on the tour are making. I see that happening maybe in the next 10 years.
I definitely agree. It's a blend of screen sports and screen golf, the TGL. What's your take on that, and how successful will that be, and what's that going to bring to the viewers' screens?
Can't wait, and I'm sure you can't either. As someone who owns a business that has indoor golf or simulator golf happening, I can't wait for it to come out, because those that old school golf or traditionalists, they rubbish screen golf. Oh, this is ridiculous. Go and play outside. Go and learn elements and wind and all this. You're like, wind is on the screen. Uneven lies are on the screen. Shaping shots is on the screen. Everything you want to do is still on the screen. They're going to see that these things are actually legit now. Simulators are phenomenal, and getting to see the best players in the world having fun competitions on it and doing stuff like that in front of a live audience, it's going to be great for our businesses and the business of golf entertainment. But it'll introduce so many more people. And I think most of those traditionalists who rubbish it will start to see past that. Hang on, I should open my eyes a bit more to this.
Yeah. Well, I've got the benefit of having the simulator brand Full Swing Golf that has Tiger's face on the screen every time you turn it on, and that just immediately just having Tiger's face on there as people walk in and see it brings another level of interest and information and sincerity about it. So I can't wait to see that. But I know Tiger. I don't know Tiger, but I know from the Full Swing Golf people, when he's invested in something, it doesn't happen unless it's 100% Tiger, spot on, perfect. Yep. The example being the launch of this new Full Swing kit launch model, which is like a competitor to the TrackMans, and that, it was available for. The story was it was ready, but until Tiger could hit his 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 and hit it exactly to the number that he could say that's 167 and turn around and see 167, until he could get the consistency of that, it was never going out into a bag. So,
it was like, remember when he was testing those Nike clubs? Yeah. When manufacturing the Nike club, it was like, no, this doesn't feel right. This is not it. No, this is the way it should come out. And they finally got it to being exactly how he wanted. He goes all in when he's invested into something or he's interested in something. He goes all in.
Yeah. So I can't wait to see that. Your recent commentary gigs, I had the pleasure of listening to you on the international feed at the PGA, run by Brooks Koepka, and more recently at LACC, where Wyndham Clark picked up the US Open. Were you on course there with Shane Bacon, or was that remote?
No, we were there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, it was incredible. That golf course, the way the US Open's now evolving from these corridor, tree-lined, massively thick, rough fairways to width, expansion, angles, sandbelt type courses. You'll see it with Pinehurst number 2 again next year. LACC, everyone's blowing, there's so much width on the fairways. You're like, they're not as wide as you think, because you've got to hit on the right spots. Otherwise, you're going to have a very tough second shot. You can't perhaps hit the green from the fairway on some of these holes. I loved LACC. Have had the privilege of playing there back in 2016. Got to play Riv. I got to play Bel Air while I was there. Those experiences are wonderful. And I just love that the world got to learn or see a bright new star in Wyndham Clark. I love that golf, the biggest thing that in golf media that has bothered me for the last 15, 20 years is it hangs its hat on about 5 names. It was Tiger for such a long time. You had Phil, DJ comes along, everyone gets excited about that. Then Rory comes along, then everyone gets excited about that. Then Jordan comes along, everyone gets excited about that. And you're like, every single player out here on tour is better than anyone you've ever met in your life. better than any player in your club, better than anyone else. Unless you've met one of these tour pros, you have no idea how good they are.
Yep.
But you think that they're enough because you've never heard their name or why they're doing here. And you're like, we need to celebrate all the players who have made it onto the biggest tours in the world because they are exceptional. The average handicap of a PGA Tour pro now, someone who's like 100, 120th, is about a plus 10. A plus 10. Rahm and McIlroy and Cam Smith and Brooks Koepka and all these superstars of the game right now, Scotty Scheffler, they're about a plus 13, plus 14. That is how much talent is in the game these days. But we only talk about 4 or 5 players all the time.
Yeah.
Let's talk about them all. So the fact that Wyndham Clark stood up and beat Rory McIlroy to win a US Open when Rory's playing great golf, he won it. Rory didn't lose it. Yep. Wyndham won it.
Yep.
We get another name to celebrate. Brilliant. I love that about golf.
How happy were you? You know, it's not a new name. It's one of those names that we tend to always want to talk about, but we've not talked about it for a couple of years because he hasn't been playing that well. But the resurgence of Ricky, how happy were you about that?
Awesome, because he's such a great fella.
Yeah.
The game of golf has kicked every single player. Ian Baker-Finch, it humbled him. But he's still a champion. Still loves the game. The fact that Ricky's been able to find it again, you're stoked for him. Jason Day, he's bounced back again. That Ricky, Rory, Jason Day, I remember doing their group as the Young Gun group at the 2011 Masters that Rory lost on the back nine on Sunday. This was their introduction to golf, and here we are, 2023, and Ricky's coming back, and Jason's coming back, and Rory's, trying to win that next major. I love that golf, they're always having to work on it. The great quote, and I remember it from a couple of years back from one of the people attached to the tour, not a famous name, said, in golf, you're sometimes the windscreen, but most often you're the bug. Yeah. And it's so true. Yep. Look what Tiger's been through. Yep. It's humbled them all. And I love that, people go through it so that people who play at home for, $5 every 9 holes with their mates, they go through, one day they shot 75, the next day they couldn't break 90. Well, the guys on the PGA Tour go through that as well. So that's pretty cool at the elite level of the game. Yeah.
I want to let you go in a second because I know you've got a big event happening there at the centre, but we've just seen the announcement of the President's Cup. Now, I don't think it was any secret that it was going to Kingston Heath. But I'm going for a game of golf today at Peninsula Kingswood on the North Course, where you and I first met and we played golf. I've actually got that great moment here, which is probably old for the listeners because they hear me play it a little bit, but here it is.
Delicate little wedge by Ross Flanagan into the third here at Peninsula Kingswood, and this is beautifully played. Can it go in the bucket? Oh, what a shot!
Now,
gee, you hit that. He played well all day, but geez, that was a great little wedge.
It was a great day to be out in the links, and talk about Finchy. Finchy was there on the a couple of holes ahead.
Woodbridge,
so many people there. Now, I was very, very buoyant about Peninsula Kingswood. And their pitch for the President's Cup. Excuse my dog barking. I actually got a couple of messages one message from an Australian player that said, as far as we know, that it's going to PK. Now, I'm not sure if I should say that or not, but this was obviously a long time ago. It's gone to Kingston Heath. I think the world needs to see Kingston Heath on the grand stage, but I would have loved to see it at Peninsula Kingswood, to be honest.
Maybe the next one in 10 years' time or whatever that's going on, maybe it hosts this epic, Australian Open that turns into sort of something way bigger than what it is again, that happens in, maybe it happens there. So these are the kind of things that I think that Peninsula Kingswood should look forward to, that some bigger events are going to start to happen there. The spectacular 36-hole property that you're a member of. They've got the space. That's what a lot of these places need. LACC, it has the 36 holes. You've got LACC North and the South Course. So that helps the infrastructure. Kingston Heath is, and Ian Baker-Finch says it's his favourite 18-hole golf course in the world. And that makes sense because, it's spectacular. It is just brilliant on a relatively flat piece of land to be able to deliver a golf course that magnitude. You're delighted the rest of the world gets to see it, because most of the Americans I speak, they're like, I've got to go play a Royal Melbourne. You're like, yes, you do, but you've also got to play Kingston Heath, Victoria, Commonwealth, Metro, PK, there's so many sandbelt courses, you just roll them out, got to play. Then you got to get down and to the Mornington Peninsula and play the National and get round over to King Island and down to Tasmania and Barnbougle and all these things. There's so much world-class golf in Australia. You could get lost there for a month, not play the same golf twice and have the time of your life. And you want Americans and other people of the world to be exposed to that.
Absolutely. Well, it's going to be great to have the President's Cup back. We saw it in 2019 and it was fantastic. Thoughts on want to forecast who might be the President's Cup captain in Australia at that time?
I don't think you have to try too hard to guess who it will be.
Adam Scott?
I have to try too hard. I hope the game's unified in a big way and that there's not, that a person like Cameron Smith can't play in it or, great stars who are over at different tours or whatever. I'm sure it will be, by then. But I don't think I'm giving too much away that obviously Mike Weir being in Canada, I believe that Jeff Ogilvy will be the captain the next time it's on US soil. I've forgotten where it's going to after that. But, it'll be a no-brainer that Adam Scott will be the captain of that President's Cup team unless something in the game changes.
Well, is that something that you'll still put your hand up for if the time is right and the availability is right and the stars line up, that you'll be down here?
Yeah, of course. You want to do the big championships. You want to do the big events. That's something that, I got to be in 2019 for the President's Cup when it was there again. You don't want to miss those things. That's the joy of it. I'll be honest, I got tired of the day-to-day grind of travel now that I've got two boys, 10 and 6, and we're in this lovely stage of life where I want to be around my family all the time. I've travelled so much. I've been in media for 30 years that I really only want to do about 8 to 10 events every year, to be honest. That's all I want to do. A few majors, a few big events and things that sort of grab me, because running this business, as you know, takes a lot more than what people think. I've also got a real estate investment company that I own as well. And, still broadcasting brings me joy. So if I can do the big ones, you beauty. If I miss out, I get to enjoy them as a fan like everyone else, and that'll be fantastic as well.
Luke, I'll let you go. It's been absolutely great to finally get to do this again, and
this one will see the light of day too.
This one will see the light of day, and I really do appreciate the time that you gave me at LIV Golf Adelaide. We had a great chat and sat there and watched the fireworks on the oval together. It was a little bit of a moment. Cool. I appreciate your time now. I look forward to seeing and hearing about all of the success of the centre there, and continuing to follow you along on your Twitter journey. And I'm a supporter, and I'm behind you. And let's keep in contact, eh?
Love it, Ross, and thank you for all your insights into the indoor golf simulator world that I can learn from, because that's the beauty of this industry. We share insights, information, and the passion for the game, whether it's playing it or being invested in it or being a fan of it. That's who we are. So if anyone's out there going, well, I hate this guy because he, thinks that LIV's okay, stop. We're all the same people. Yep. We love the game of golf, and for 40 years I've been playing this game, and I've travelled all around the world playing it, and I can count on one hand the amount of people I'd not like to play with again. Yep. That's it.
Luke.
It is a game that bonds us all, doesn't matter where you are. And if I was to meet you on a golf course, we'd have a spectacular time. We'd have a fantastic day out. It's not what your politics are or what your beliefs are, or, it's just people enjoying a great game that's been around for centuries.
Well, I hope to meet you on a golf course again and give you the opportunity to win back the lunch that I won off you and Jamie Glazier that particular day.
That was formidable, your performance.
Thank you. Too kind. Mate, I really do appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the Mile of Golf podcast.
Pleasure, Ross. Love to be with you. We'll catch up again soon.